for hosting it and having us here.
Sheriff does a great job.
Andre Bailey. I'm the founder and president of Project Opioid. We're an advocacy group working around the state, and I live here in Central Florida, and sometimes I'm Sheriff Lima's limo driver. So that's it.
Good afternoon, everybody. Karen Trebeck, Volusia Recovery Alliance. I'm the executive director and one of the founders. Thank you. Thanks for the invite.
Mark Shanoff, Superintendent, School District, Osceola County, representing 80,000 students and approximately 8,000 employees. Work very closely with our law enforcement partners and all of our community agencies to ensure the best possible educational experience for our kids, understanding that a lot of that involves public safety and education outside of the classroom.
And you deal with this every day. You deal with the drug problems every day.
Good afternoon, everybody. Doug Gerke, Chief of Police for the City of St. Cloud. Senator, I want to echo the Sheriff. Thank you so much for everything, for championing always law enforcement efforts and initiatives to help keep Florida the way it is and to help keep our community safe. It's an honor to be here today. Thank you.
Glad you're here.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm A.J. Colazzo. I'm the director of the Central Florida HIDA. We represent the I-4 HIDA, as I call it, from Daytona to Pinellas County and 10 counties in between. It's a pleasure to be here, and again, it's always an honor to sit here with leadership from the government who support us and our other law enforcement leadership here. Thank you.
Afternoon, Paul Maxwell. I want to thank AG for having me here. I'm with Central Florida HIDA myself, drug intelligence officer. I work under the National Overdose Response Strategy. It's a partnership between the HIDA programs nationally and the CDC.
Hello, my name is Leah Shepard. I'm Executive Director for Victoria's Voice Foundation based here in Orlando, Florida. Our organization was formed by David and Jackie Siegel in the aftermath of their daughter's accidental drug overdose in 2015, and would also like to thank Sheriff Lima for serving on our board of directors and for his leadership.
Rebecca Fowler. My daughter was a victim of fentanyl poisoning 2 years ago, and I have since become involved with different organizations to help promote advocacy, education, to promote laws to be put into place for education in the school systems as well as nationwide.
And you want to be involved in the
And
school
I want to
system.
be involved. You're right.
That's
do.
the issue that we deal with.
That's my main.
You got to get people into these schools.
I know. That is my main goal, is to get into the schools. I think if the students hear the stories with the education, I think it would be a bigger impact on them.
I'm Jim Rao. I'm founder of Families Against Fentanyl. We have a mission to have fentanyl declared a weapon of mass destruction, so it will diminish the supply and provide accountability for the government's response to end this blight that's affecting our citizens, killing our kids.
I'm Dr. Susan Bissett. I'm president of the Drug Intervention Institute. Our mission is to reduce overdose through education and outreach as well as prevention efforts, and we're the distributor of the one-box naloxone emergency kit. And I'm very honored to be here today. Thank you for the invitation.
I'm Mayor Olga Gonzalez, and I'm honored that you use our city to give out all this great information. This is very important to me. I'm a mother of 15 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren, and it's important that we teach.
It scares the living death.
Yes, it does. It does scare the living daylights out of me. And I would love to give information to families because my people perish for lack of knowledge, and this is going to give our communities a lot of knowledge. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Uttam Dillon. I'm a former federal drug prosecutor and the former acting administrator of the Drug Enforcement Administration. I appreciate the opportunity to participate today.
Hi, I'm Nick DeMoro, Executive Director and Chief Executive Officer of LEAD, Law Enforcement Against Drugs and Violence. We're a drug prevention program in schools in the United States, and honored to be here.
And based on the border.
The world's centered around Florida now.
I'm Jim Carroll. I'm the former director of the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy, a position known informally as the U.S. Drug Czar, with oversight of about 100 professionals at the White House. I'm dedicated to making sure that the $38 billion that Senator Rick Scott is kind enough to send to our country to fight this fight, and overseeing the policy of the federal government. Thank you, Senator Scott, for inviting us down. We're honored to be here.
I'm glad you're here. And can you hear all right with that? Yes. Yeah, okay. Chief, thanks for inviting us here. Sheriff, it's nice to be in your county. Mayor, it's nice to be in your city. I want to thank everybody for being here. I don't think there's anybody in this country that's not impacted by drug abuse. Okay, I just lost a brother, not to fentanyl, but I just lost a brother that got involved in drugs when he was a teenager. And it's tough. It's a tough life. I mean, some of it, as we all know, you got stuck with a certain brain, right? But some of it is completely accidental, where somebody didn't know that there was going to be a drug in there. They tried to do everything right. I talked to a couple the other day that just lost their son. I think he was like 25, and it was just happened to be in a drug they thought was a over-the-counter drug that somebody gave them, and of course they passed away. Unfortunately, that happens way too often. Now, some of it's intentional. What's happened across our southern border, where people are unfortunately, we've got an open southern border, and there's got a lot of drugs coming across our border. China's, creating precursors that the cartel's bringing in, and it's impacted everybody. I remember just right after Biden took office, I was down in, I think it was Sheriff Hoffman. I was in their lab like 2 weeks later, and they already had something new that they believe had just come across the border. But unfortunately, we've struggled to have a closed border, and it's a real problem. I've tried a variety of things in this job of trying to get things passed. We did get the Fentanyl Act passed, which would require Border Patrol to update their interdiction guidelines every 3 years. But the reality is, it has to start with all of us as individuals. I'm blessed. I don't have 15, which would be nice, but I have 7 grandkids, and the oldest is 12, the youngest is 4, and I'm always, every time I'm around them, I'm talking about drugs. I'm not going to let up. It scared me when Ann and I were raising our daughters, and it scares me with our grandkids, because you can't get started with this stuff. And it seems like since me growing up, where if people got involved in drugs, they were involved in marijuana. Now there are so many options for things, and in the way it's presented, it's presented like candy and all sorts of these things. So I've proposed a lot of bills. We've struggled to get them passed. And most of it is to either do what Jim said. Either we've got to educate people, or we've got to help people, through law enforcement. Unfortunately, today in our country, so many problems are solved through law enforcement. A lot of our drug abuse problems, or a lot of our mental health abuse problems, are dealt with either through our school system, or when somebody gets in trouble, has an overdose, or gets arrested. So my goal with this is, I'm a business guy. In business, what we did is we said we had a problem. We all came together, said these are some ideas that we should be trying. I've got a nice title right now as a U.S. Senator, and my goal is, I've got a great team I get to work with, and my goal is to make sure that we get the best ideas and we try to get them passed. I want to introduce Jared. Jared is the lead in my Senate office in D.C., and he does a great job. We've been able to have some roundtables on fentanyl up there, and we got to listen to a lot of parents. And I can't imagine. No one can imagine losing a kid or a grandkid, right? Nobody can do that. And then they die of fentanyl, and often it's accidental. So we've got a lot of work to do. There's a lot of drugs in our country, but the fentanyl is the worst right now. It's 70,000+ a year. So I just want to make sure everybody knows we have state offices around the state. We've got Barry here in Orlando. We've got Alex. I think she was here. There's Alex. She runs our state. So we've got offices around. So anything that, and Barry, I don't know if you want to talk about the people that are in your office, but we're a resource. We are here 100%. It's your money, by the way, to help you. We've got 9 offices, but one for the best constituent services team in the country. So, I know, Barry.
Javier Bustos. Javier is one of our constituent services liaison, even one of our senior caseworkers in our office. And then Celso Torres, he's an intern in our office through today. And then he'll be interning in Senator Scott's D.C. office starting in July.
Yep. So why don't we go around? I mean, Sheriff, you want to just do it in this order? Same where we started, just talk about ideas. But the big thing I think the goal is at the end is what are we doing locally, and then what can we do federally that would make a difference?
Yeah, so, Senator, what I'd like to do maybe in the beginning, kind of state of where we're at with this crisis. And the Senator and, at the time, Attorney General Pam Bondi worked with law enforcement from across the state to really eliminate overprescribing with bringing in the prescription pill monitoring system. We closed the doors in one day of all these rogue facilities, literally closed it in one day. But what we saw was people who had become addicted and dependent, 80% of the people that were legally prescribed the drugs, then turned to street-level heroin. They started to divert pills that were already in people's medicine cabinets, and then the rogue chemists in China started to manufacture and then ship all these pills into our country. Cartels were threatened by that. Largely the 2 major cartels, the Sinaloa and Jalisco New Generation cartel, said, "What? We're not going to get cut out by China. We're going to send our chemists over and learn. We'll take precursor chemicals and we'll start to do it ourselves." Now, the most recent stats from the Drug Enforcement Administration show that 70% of the pills that are on the street in this country contain a lethal dose of fentanyl. As a reminder,
Stop and listen to that.
70%. If 7 out of 10 people that take a pill that's not handed to them by a pharmacist are likely to die from being poisoned or overdose. There is poisoning and there is overdosing. And to shape that, you can overdose if you take too much of a substance, knowingly taking it, regardless if it's illegal or legal. What we're seeing now is people are lacing fentanyl and other drugs because they're looking to create the addictive properties of the drug. Somebody smokes marijuana, sells marijuana, they're saying we're giving you a new strand of marijuana because if you were illegally buying marijuana once a month, now you're buying it 3 times a day because you don't realize you're getting addicted to the heroin, the synthetic heroin. So we see this 70% of the pills that are on the street, which means for the first time in American history, the average life expectancy of a U.S. citizen is now diminished. The #1 cause of death of young people is a drug overdose. For some people in this room that filled out their first job application that said they experimented with drugs, kids are experimenting with drugs one time and they're dying. So the strategy has been a comprehensive strategy that involves everybody. And I'll tell you, Senator Scott is constantly on the phone with me and other sheriffs throughout the state. His team, Barry, I mean, they've become friends with us because they are so plugged in on this issue. 1, greater access to the life-saving drug naloxone. Whether it's in Narcan, Cloxato, everybody should carry this, not the person who's struggling themselves. There has not been one report in this world of somebody who's been poisoned or overdosed self-deploying naloxone and saving their own lives. It's about other people who may be around individuals like this. 2, to make sure that we get greater access to medical-based treatment therapy, whether it's buprenorphine, the misused and often available, other remedies. But there is a strategy combined with cognitive behavioral therapy that can lead people towards a path of sobriety once we get them thinking right and stabilized out. Okay? That is incredibly important to be able to do that, to be able to strategize. Lastly, and Florida has been leading the charge across the country with this, the drug dealers have to be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. We were able to work with Governor DeSantis and our legislation to make sure that we have brought bills on the books in Florida that do just that. It was proximate cause of death to charge somebody with murder, 3 years ago, we changed that to substantial factor. And in Seminole County alone, we've charged 35 drug dealers with first-degree murder for dealing with drugs. Because we know that we're using naloxone and bringing people back to life, quite literally the drug dealer was getting away with that. So we added a new law that allows for every single person that we revive, if we can still prove that the drug dealer dealt the deadly dose of drugs, we now charge them with second-degree felony culpable negligence for doing that. Prior to this, there was no bill on the book before. Two others that is pretty significant, and I know Senator was working with us and our team on this effort, was there is an increased penalty if a drug dealer is selling drugs in areas of vulnerability, school, church, playground. But there was no increased penalty until recently for a drug dealer selling drugs in proximity to an area where somebody's trying to get clean. So you can imagine just for a moment, if you have a recovery center and you have a line of drug dealers standing across the street, how attractive it is for them to be able to do that. We've now added that in the state of Florida to charge those individuals with an enhanced charge. And then again, with many members of Congress and the Senate and Senator Scott's leadership, we have now designated June 6th as National Naloxone Awareness Day. We also mirrored that here in the state of Florida. That is the date of the death of Victoria Siegel, the effort that David and Jackie brought forward, because before their advocacy, people in policing did not know about Narcan or naloxone, although it had been around for 60 years. So the numbers are working in our direction. We're moving forward, all court press, and doing all that we can to make sure that we are treating this holistically. It's not a situation in many regards of trying to make bad people good but sick people well. And I want to thank the senator, because since he was governor here in the state of Florida, he and Pam Bondi started this charge, started us down the path to make sure that we're doing right for the people, and he has not stopped since that time. We're grateful.
Thanks. Jimmy, you want to say something to start? I'm going to pass over to the chief.
Thank you, Senator. I think what the sheriff said is right, and I think you mentioned it a little bit. Your work as governor. Some people here in the state think of you as governor.
Yeah.
Some people in D.C. think of you as senator. But really, I think your role here today, the title you're really here for is dad and grandfather.
Right.
And that's why you're here, is because we're talking about our kids, we're talking about our grandchildren. 7, I think you said, Senator? I have 2 and 2 on the way, so I need to catch up. The reality is what we're facing is a danger that we've never seen before. It's starting in China, period, full stop. We know it is. The Chinese government report just coming out of Congress showed that the Chinese government, the CCP, is reimbursing the drug traffickers to send the precursor chemicals that make fentanyl to Mexico. CCP is involved. Chinese government is absolutely involved. Mexican government is doing nothing about it, and we in the executive branch, not the congressional branch, but in the administration, they're not holding China and Mexico accountable. We need to do that. We need to go back to those days. I was honored to lead a White House delegation to China, where we led a very strong message and cut down, and for the first time in 30 years, we had a reduction in the number of fatal overdoses. From 4 years ago, we now have a 40% increase, almost 45% increase in the number of fatalities. The senator, the governor, the father, the grandfather to my right, and all of us find that unacceptable, and we need to take action now. What I'm going to say quickly is this reminds me of some of the work that you've done. My wife and I belong to a church, of course, back home in D.C. I know I live in D.C. It's not God's country compared to Florida. But there's a church, a little side chapel. And on the wall from D.C., it took me a while to really understand what this was saying. So after about 2 years of going there on a monthly basis with a group of other parents, there's something on the wall, and I realized that it's talking about the work that we're trying to do in D.C. under the leadership, the strong leadership of Senator Scott. It starts out, but it says, "Do not be afraid, I am with you." Those are the people that we're trying to help, the people that do have an addiction. The next line says, "I am here to enlighten." That's what people like Law Enforcement Against Drugs are doing, based here in Florida, is enlightening kids and adults going into schools like parents are every day. But the last line is what we're here to talk about, really, I think, today, is live with a penitent heart. And that is, either the dealers that are trafficking and bringing this into our country, into our communities, who don't have an addiction to a drug. Their addiction is to greed, is to money in their wallet. They don't care about the wake of destruction that they leave behind. So living with a penitent heart is thank God for law enforcement. The men and women of law enforcement, federal, state, local, tribal, throughout our country, and of course here in Florida, with the great work done by major city sheriff chiefs, National Sheriff's Association, International Association of Chiefs of Police, and next week, of course, being Police Week, we are thrilled to be able to stand with law enforcement as they protect our children. So, Senator Scott, thank you for being a strong, he's a nice, kindly grandfather in Florida. In D.C., he's a bit louder and a bit more vocal about his support for law enforcement and really support for families. So thank you for wearing two faces. The best time anyone has ever said two-faced. Nice. In Florida.
Sometimes my daughters didn't think that. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Senator.
Chief.
Thank you. It's I agree with Sheriff Lehman, everything that he said. I wasn't aware of the 70%. That, to me, is astounding. I do think not only is this a drug harmful to our kids, but to our law enforcement personnel as well, because it's a very dangerous job.
It's risky.
And it's very risky. But I do believe that, prevention, intervention, treatment, and healing is part of it. And us coming together and having these conversations, I think, will help. We just finished our LEAD program, so I'm very proud to say, which will help, with the boys and girls at the club, and I think that's a good place to start. So thank you for coming.
Thanks for being here.
Yes.
Thanks, Sheriff.
I have to agree. Here in Central Florida, we do have an issue. For example, last year, according to the medical examiner's office, there was 171 overdose-related deaths that were caused by fentanyl. 129 were right here in Osceola County, and we are not even half their population. We can come up with all kind of ideas on how to try to prevent or save or rescue, but you really have to control these borders. There's no other way around it. It seems like everything's coming from these other countries, and we're just a stance right now under this current administration. Hey, and I'm a Democrat, but I'm all about constitutionally keeping our people safe. And I think that they're doing a very bad job, and we've seen a spike in this the last 4 years. And if we don't control these borders and we don't start getting this under control, the next 4 years are going to be even worse. And it's just setting us up for more failure, and we're destroying ourselves from within. We've got plenty of money. We just got to start using it wisely. Random sampling. Let's find out if it's coming from South America, if it's coming from China, or where. And then we can start hitting them with tougher sanctions. We give them a lot, and maybe we can put a little squeeze on them that way in order for them to work harder in their own countries where this poison is coming from. But other than that, that's all we can do, and keep working hard and putting our brains together to see how we can stop this.
The other thing, Sheriff, is the post office has this de minimis rule, so they can ship a whole bunch of it into here because our international mail centers are overwhelmed, and you can ship anything without any tariffs for under $800. So there's a lot of it that comes in that way too. So it's really bad. We're trying to. I've got an ability to get that changed, but it's been hard to do.
Senator, thank you again for your work, both in D.C. and in Florida. And we're privileged at Project Opioid to have Dennis Lima as the co-chair of our work here. Reiterating what was already said, but guys, this is no longer a prescription pill crisis. For years, we were flooding pharmacies with pills, creating addicts. That is not the crisis now. You could actually make a case that it's too hard to get a prescription sometimes for opioids, shockingly enough. Our data shows we've cut prescriptions to opioids sometimes by 80%. This is now a fentanyl crisis. 80 to 90% of the deaths in any community are fentanyl, with almost all of it coming, the precursors from China and coming across the Mexican border. And if you think about the drug crisis that we have faced in America for generations and now compare it to the fentanyl crisis, if this amount of rock salt was fentanyl, this small amount I have here, this would be enough to kill an entire elementary school here in Osceola County and a high school all in one small bag. This is what our kids are facing now. They're facing the most dangerous and profitable drug we've ever seen in the history of our country, and it's unlike anything we've seen previously. I also want to reiterate something that the sheriff was touching on, which is although we now have seen a historic amount of deaths in this country, over 100,000 deaths last year alone, we've seen something for the first time that gives us a glimmer of hope. In Florida, the data showed last year that in certain counties, deaths continued to rise, but in other counties, including some here in this region, deaths began to fall for the first time. Project Opioid, we've got data on this. Two major correlating factors: communities that are distributing naloxone everywhere, anywhere, the great work being done by many in this room, including Victoria's Voice and others. Naloxone should be everywhere. It is not enabling young people if you help bring them back from the dead. Dead kids don't recover from drugs, so we have to remember that. The second thing, this might be a little bit more controversial than naloxone, but it should not be, and that is helping someone get on a medication-assisted treatment regimen, not just cognitive behavioral therapy. Let me tell you, if you have a young person, if you have a teen or a 20-something in this room, every one of them seems like they're struggling with mental health. We know social media is a big driver of that. We have a mental health crisis in this country. But when someone becomes chemically addicted to fentanyl, they cannot stop unless we help them. Medication-assisted treatment, something very cheap like buprenorphine, Suboxone, can be the bridge between their potential death and recovery. So we need to embrace medication-assisted treatment, and communities that are doing naloxone and medication-assisted treatment, we're seeing reductions in deaths as much as 30 and 40% in 1 year. We need to break the stigma around that, then push for cognitive behavioral therapy. We need to have families, a lot of conversation in here about getting into schools. We're totally in favor of that, but I would just say this. Guys, we need to get to those parents. We need to get to parents and tell them, talk to your kids about fentanyl, because we've had a little bit of a hypocritical attitude in this country around drugs. You know, drugs are so terrible, yet we almost glorify drugs in our society. Scarface, the Wolf of Wall Street, you know, we glorify it in the media. But guys, it's different now. Maybe you could 10 and 20 years ago experiment with drugs and get away with it. You experiment with drugs now, you're going to find fentanyl, and you're going to find overdose and death. We have to change the conversation with parents as much as we do with students. And again, Senator, thank you for your work. You are a champion in D.C., here in Florida, and thank you to all the leaders in this room. Together, we know we can save lives and transform our state and our community.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much, Senator Scott, for giving me the privilege to be here today. For those that you don't know me, I'm Karen Strapek. I'm the Executive Director of Volusia Recovery Alliance. I am a person in long-term recovery of 41 years, and part of the recovery movement that's been happening in Florida since 2019, really, when the Aetna Foundation gave money to the Behavioral Health Association to start recovery community organizations. And one of the big components of fighting this is the recovery support. And so recovery support entails often recovery coaching, but different kinds of meetings for people, mutual aid meetings. We have a fathers group at Volusia Recovery Alliance that helps dads get into recovery and get the tools that they need to be better dads. It's just one of the things that we offer at Volusia Recovery Alliance. We even have, because of the Department of Children and Families and LSF Health Systems, we have a contract to help first responders get the resources that they need. Some of them really suffer from PTSD and other things. And so we're in place to help the community. And throughout the state, there are many recovery community organizations. So if you don't know about what a recovery community organization is and how they can help your community, you can go to FloridiansForRecovery.org. They have a RCO map, And just know that these recovery community organizations are popping up throughout the state. Volusia Recovery Alliance has given out more than 20,000 Narcan kits since we've gotten our contract with DCF to do that. We've saved almost 200 lives with our Narcan distribution. And I am happy to say that the deaths in Volusia County are down, throughout the county are down by 17.98% as of May 2nd. However, we have a lot of work to do. One death is too many. One of the things we offer is an overdose grief support group, and I can't tell you how painful those meetings are. As a person in long-term recovery that's lost loved ones and friends, many friends, to overdose, it is a horrible thing. That kind of grief is complicated and it needs special help. So please know that we are here to represent, I'm here to represent the recovery community because I am a person in recovery that used many drugs. And I found recovery a long time ago, and it's a privilege to be here. And I want to thank you for all the work that you do for us. Thank you.
Mark Shanoff, Superintendent, School District of Osceola County. I want to echo everybody's thanks, Senator Scott, for bringing light to this issue, making sure that this doesn't go away until it's solved. So we really appreciate that. As a former principal, former teacher, and now superintendent, I don't spend a significant amount of time worried about my students when they're on our campuses. I know that between our teachers, our principals, and our tremendous law enforcement partners, our students are safe, they're happy when they're on our school campuses. What keeps me up at night is wondering what the students are doing while I should be going to sleep, but I'm worried about them. And that concerns me. That concerns me. That visibility outside of the school day concerns me. And it concerns all of the educators, I think, across our state and across our nation. We work tirelessly to establish strong relationships with our students. In many cases, we try to keep them on campus as much as possible to ensure that they are in a safe, positive environment where they can feel good about themselves. But yet there are still things and preconditions that exist within our communities that are sometimes beyond our control. Some of it has to do with the actual community influence itself. Some of it has to do with peer pressure. Some of it has to do with accessibility. Some of it has to do with mental health. I think for our students, one of the best things that we did this year is that we ensured that students were going to be present in their learning when they were on our campuses. We were not going to allow them to use their cell phones on campus. We weren't going to allow them to engage in social media on campus. We weren't going to allow outside influences to interrupt the education of our students while they were on campus. It was the best way that we could level the playing field and create an environment where students could focus on themselves and being the best version of themselves. So in pivoting, yes, we need to look at how do we coordinate education inside and outside of the school campus? How do we make sure that we leverage all of the time that we have on campus to ensure that our students make good decisions when they are off campus? Prevention, intervention, and then, of course, collaborating with all of these wonderful community partners that are here today. We have to make sure that we're all in alignment. We have to make sure that we're working in the same direction. We have to make sure that we're trying to get to the same end. And that, for us, I think will allow us to increase the surface area of our visibility within our communities. And if we're able to do that, then we'll be able to make a tremendous dent in this issue. We will be able to make sure that we have the services and the critical relationships established out in the community to ensure our kids are supported before they make a bad decision. Thank you.
You know, people don't realize that if you're a teacher or if you're a principal, if you're a superintendent, every child you lose is horrible. it hurts your heart. Every one of those, it hurts your heart.
Doug Gerke, Chief of Police for St. Cloud. Senator, it's an honor to sit here to speak with you all. It's kind of hard and difficult to go after all these other amazing law enforcement professionals, but I will tell you, my time prior to becoming a chief of police, I was a narcotics commander at the Metropolitan Bureau of Investigation. I was there during the PDMP and the creation of all that, and all the doctor shopping and everything. We took down those doctors that were overprescribing. The pain management clinics in Central Florida were pervasive, and through your work and through your help. Yes, sir. And it was down south as well, but even in Central Florida, we were seeing it quite a bit, a lot of overdoses that led to the diversion of the pills. And so, but interestingly enough, when we started moving into the synthetic opioids coming from overseas in China, every time we changed Schedule 1 of what the drug narcotic was, makeup was, China was changing the chemical makeup of their mixes so it would actually not fall into the Schedule 1. They kept changing it, and it was a fight and battle. So I know that was something that we were able to fight to get over. I will tell you at the local level, what we do have here, honestly, is our amazing partnerships. It doesn't matter what color your badge is, what color your uniform is. We are all working together, state, local, and federal, to impact this. And I think that is probably we are the model for the country, I believe. I travel quite a bit. I speak across the country, and I say, do you know who your DEA partner is, your FBI partner? A lot of them look at me like they have no idea what I'm talking about. So to have those partnerships, to be able to pick up those phones and have all those special agents come out and address this, it is truly, it's the effort by the village to address this. So we're definitely moving in the right direction. On a local level, just so you know, we got the COPS grant. We actually brought 6 new officers on, and it's a community engagement unit, and that's going to be for drug prevention, drug education, and really interacting with the community. And I know you helped us with that, so thank you very much for that as well. But even so, just some of the things that we're seeing, just so you know, recently we worked a case in St. Cloud with 15,000 fentanyl pills. So we just held that up with a little salt bag. 15,000 pills, they're all multicolor, and what does that mean? They are, I guess, attractive to the youth to use these things. 15,000 pills. We've seized some other things that are just staggering.
If that happened to my kid or my grandkid, I would be furious.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yeah.
All of us as parents and grandparents just infuriate the hell out of you.
So with that being said, all I ask is we continue to put the pressure on our cross-border crime that's coming across right now. Keep the pressure on China. I know we can work on this together and actually address this. So thank you for everything you're doing.
Don't buy anything from China. Nothing.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
It's all bad. By the way, on what the chief said about these grants, if you talk to Barry or talk to Jared, either one, we will help with any of the. There's a lot of federal grant programs, and so our job is to help with them. So you can talk to Barry or you can talk to Jared, either one.
Thank you again, Senator. A.J. Collazo from HIDA. Speaking of grant programs, Rick, it's always a pleasure to be at these meetings, especially with the sheriffs that are here. That I work at their pleasure, running our board and our HIDA here. The collaboration in Central Florida is second to none. The work that these men and women are doing is just phenomenal. They work weekends. They miss, birthdays. Everything that they sacrifice to do this job. They're laser focused. I looked at the fentanyl seizures that we've had in the last 4 years for this region alone, the 10 counties that we're talking about. Over 610 kilograms seized. That's the seizure amounts by the HIDA initiative, 17 of them up and down this Central Florida region. How many of those baggies can we fill with that, right?
Yeah.
I was just up in Polk County 2 weeks ago with Sheriff Judd, Attorney General Mooney, FDLE. They seized 14 in one shot. How many bags can we fill with that? So the enforcement is there. These men and women are doing God's work, is what I say. They are really focused, and they are doing a phenomenal job. They're locking up drug traffickers. They're going after them because we know that this is not produced here. It's produced overseas. So they go backwards.
No,
in
it's
their
here to kill us.
investigations. Yeah.
I mean, they're doing it to kill us.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
just-
absolutely.
When you look on Amazon and you see a product, if you can't figure out where it's made in China, don't buy it, because all we're doing is helping them sell us more drugs to kill our kids.
Absolutely. It's Russian roulette is what I say. So I made the point to this group of parents one time, you can go to the store and buy a loaf of bread, flip it over, you know how many proteins, sugars, and those things because you have that note on the back of the loaf of bread. You're trusting a drug dealer with a baggie, or you're going to Amazon, you don't even know who that is. You're not getting it from a pharmacist. It's not prescribed to you. And it's heartbreaking. I know we have some parents here that they've woken up and their kids have not. So the holistic approach that Sheriff Lima talked about is something that we didn't do years ago as cops. We went after bad guys. We locked people up. But what we're doing today and having these focus groups, speaking about the problem, educating the public, letting people know.
But the media is doing more all the time. I mean, the media is big helping all this. They're doing a lot more all the time. I mean, I talk to a lot of people in media, and they're doing a lot more about this.
That's right. That's right.
And a lot is because all you guys are talking about it.
And that's part of the job, right?
Right.
Now it's holistic. Now you have to start educating people. We have a thing called the overdose response strategy, which I'll have Paul talk about a little bit. That's one of the things that we try to do. We're trying to unite public safety and public health to educate the public. And that's what I see from my foxhole here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, AJ. Thanks again for this opportunity. And AJ missed it. I'm Paul Maxwell, again, the Drug Intelligence Officer. I retired as a DEA Special Agent after 30-plus years of law enforcement. And I fell into this job, the first position for a DIO in Central Florida under HIDA for the ORS program. So I was lucky to start this up. It's a hybrid job, so I've been doing it about 3 years now. Very happy. It was the first national program that brought public health and public safety together to talk about this at a national level. Then, when they made the teams, each state has a team. In fact, Florida has 3 teams, Texas has 3 teams, California has 3 teams, every other state has 1, Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands have a team. Now it's our job to bring the national, what we learn nationally, back to the local level. It was designed, it's a federal program, but designed to affect the local level. We're here, we live in the communities, we want to help our communities, but try to bring in everything we can from the national level. We have our national conference next week in Dallas, so we hear from everyone across the country what's working, what's not working. So I ask anyone in the room that needs the assistance, the collaboration, get with us. If we don't have an answer, we'll try to find the answers. I work with a public health analyst. She's fantastic. She's taught me a lot. AJ and the rest of law enforcement, they said the same thing. I was in South Florida as an agent during Pill Nation and taking down all the pill mills. I saw the lines around the block, but we didn't think about it. What's going to happen to those people when we close those clinics? So that was on us. I always take that little bit of responsibility. We didn't have the forethought. But we're trying to catch up now and make that difference. So this is a program through HIDA and CDC. That's just the team, which is a strange but good team doing good work. So we just ask to support that. And anything we can do, please get with us.
Thanks. The other thing we did when I was governor with the support of law enforcement was we reduced the number of pills you could get on the oxycodone. So it was, some people weren't happy with it, but it actually worked. So, I mean, I think that and the pill mills probably had some of the biggest impacts.
Thank you, Senator, for having me today and having us here. And thank you very much for this great state of Florida. I'm a guy from New Jersey who
woke up and came to the right state.
Is transitioning to a resident of Florida. I have a house in Naples, and I'm transitioning to a full-time status there. Transitioning to a full-time status there, and love this state. It's phenomenal. I didn't love the 4-hour drive from Naples to here today, but that was beside the point. But all joking aside, seriously, we have a problem here. We have a radio show in New York City on Saturday mornings at noon, Battling Drugs and Violence with the lead guy. Yep, that's me. So if you ever want to listen to 970. But Sheriff Rambost, 4 years ago, I know he's a friend senator, and Sheriff's a great guy. He's on our board of directors. He took a chance on us, and he trained 70 of his deputies. And it's done a great job. We're now in 57% of all the counties in Florida. In the next 4 months, we're going to train another 350 law enforcement officers. and reach, hopefully in the next school year, over 50,000 students, which is something, special. But we're not going to be able to do it alone. We need all of you, everyone at this table. We're a piece of the puzzle. LEAD is a piece of the puzzle, and we need to be a major player in that. But all of you too, treatment, prevention, we all need to collaborate. As you mentioned about collaboration, it is important. Having family in recovery, I see the importance of it. What's scary is this, and I see the one pill can kill, and that is true. Seeing, my house in New Jersey is about 1.5 miles from Asbury Park, and Asbury has there's a lot of fentanyl issues there, and it's all coming from the one pill. People don't realize, hey, here, try this. You got a bad back, your back hurts, try this. Oh, I'm addicted to oxycodone, but I can't get any more prescriptions. Here, Joe on the corner, he'll give you some. And he's right. I was at a seminar. I sit on the Dangerous Narcotics Committee for the IACP, and I was out in Dallas 2 weeks ago, and the DEA presented that same fact. About 70% of all of the fake pills are deadly. And it's really scary. But we have to stop. We have to, Senator, stop that border. That border is bad. It is.
It's not as like the sheriff said, this is not a partisan issue.
No, you're
It's
right.
not a political
Absolutely.
issue. I mean, the border has to be secure.
I say it on the show all the time. I say, Mr. President, wake up. Yeah. We have to address this. Everyone, President Trump, many years ago started building a wall, and everybody laughed at it, right? Let's build that wall. I mean, it is that bad. We have to protect the border. It is scary. I can think back many, many years ago down in the south part of in the Everglades. We had a drug problem. You got to protect. You have to protect the border, and you guys have done a great job protecting this border. And I think that everyone in Mexico needs. In Texas and Arizona, the biggest one they said was coming from in the area of San Diego, is the biggest border problem, and we have to protect that. We need to protect the border. We need to collaborate, all of us together, and we need to get education out there at all ages. Our organization, people think we're just K-12 drug prevention. No, we're not. We're life, birth to death. And we have to educate everyone in the ramifications and the issues facing our society. But make sure, the only thing I say about evidence-based drug prevention in schools, make sure it's tested, proven effective. Make sure that curriculum is tested, proven effective. We're lucky our program is tested, proven effective. It was tested in Florida, Hillsborough County. So we're very proud of that too. But make sure, there are a lot of people out there making lessons to just throw at kids. Can't do it. Can't do it. It's as harmful as taking a drug. So I want to thank you all for being here today. LEAD, we have an office in Naples, Florida. We're here to stay. We just doubled the size of it. We love Florida. We're here to help. We're here to do anything you need to work and make this a better state and a better country. And God bless you all.
Leah Shepard with Victoria's Voice. There's no shortage of nonprofits that have been started by parents who buried a child, whether it's from a drug overdose or drowning or car accident or suicide. And I think just like my friends here to the right, David and Jackie, first and foremost, when it first happened, we're just looking for answers. How did this happen? Why did this happen? Why my child? What did I do wrong as a parent? And channeled that grief into this nonprofit. And I know Jim spent countless hours and days with you up in D.C. in the aftermath of Victoria's death looking for answers. And when we meet with parents, because education is our lane, and that's what we do. We cannot stop anything about the supply coming across the border, but we certainly can try to stop the demand with kids and with parent education programs. And two of the things that are biggest on parents' minds right now, Senator, are one, which you can't do anything about, is Amendment 3 in the state of Florida, is legalizing marijuana over the age of 21. Because when you start reading stories about a 12-year-old kid who tries pot for the first time and dies from fentanyl poisoning, we've made marijuana ubiquitous.
That's how my
It's
brother
just
started. My
right.
brother started with marijuana.
Right. And it's secondly, we have parents ask us a lot about the 2018 Farm Bill. that essentially legalized marijuana in all 50 states, and with it coming up for renewal, what can be done about the language in that bill to potentially mitigate what's already happened? And I don't know the answer to that question. I'm just letting you know that these are the kind of the feedback we get from parents in our world.
Thanks.
Senator Scott, thank you again for having me here. My daughter Mackenzie died 2 years ago from fentanyl poisoning. She got a pill from a coworker that was not what she thought it was going to be. That's what's happening with a lot of our kids, is they're overwhelmed with extracurricular activities their parents have them enrolled in, or even school. They're overwhelmed with their education load because they've got to get the perfect grades, they've got to get into the perfect school, they've got to get this right, they've got to get that right. So a lot of times these kids don't know who to go to because they don't really want to go to their parents because maybe they've tried, or they don't trust their parents, or their parents are
Don't listen.
go-getters, and their expectations are high here when the child or teenager can only get up to here. So they're going to who they trust the most, their friends. They're asking their friends for something that can help them sleep. They're asking for something to help them get through exams. They're asking for something to help them with their nerves because they're so anxious, or the anxiety is overwhelming for them. So their friends are giving them a pill. They're going home at night, and before they go to bed, they're taking this pill. And their parents or their siblings, or in my daughter's case, her boyfriend, are finding them in the morning, and they've already passed. The only time Narcan can help is if there's somebody that's there to give it to them. I've been involved recently with Manatee County Coalition for a Drug-Free Community, and we've done Narcan drives and awareness drives. I've done awareness drives and rallies at billboards in Tampa where my daughter and so many other parents, sons and daughters, are on. And a lot of parents will say, my kid, I don't need this. Well, you have teenagers at home, yes. You have middle schoolers at home, yes. Yes, but they don't do drugs. There's a stigma around the drug use. So a lot of times it is one pill, because you'll hear the parents say, they never even use drugs. So not only do the kids need to be educated not to take a pill from a friend, but they need to be shown that if you can't trust your parents, if you don't feel you can go to your parents because they're not going to receive this well, we need to give you somebody that you can go to, an educator, a clergy person, a friend's parents, somebody that they know that they can go to help them get with their parents to say, hey, they need a break. They're overwhelmed. You know, the mental health is the biggest part of it. Getting into the schools is so important. A lot of times they don't hear the stories in their education. They don't hear from parents who are going through this. Since my daughter died, my life has never been the same, and it never will be the same. We need more community involvement. I've made such a list here. I'm a mess with my notes here. There's the stigma, the mental health. A majority of the kids that are taking the pills at night, and their parents don't even know they have them. It's hard to get into the schools to do the education.
Say that again. Do you have?
It's hard to get in the schools to bring the awareness and the education to these kids.
That's hard to believe.
It's hard. I've tried with
It's the biggest killer of our kids, right?
They're going after our young people. When they distribute this stuff, they're going after our young people.
It's the biggest killer of our kids.
It is in 2022 alone, there were over 76,000 deaths in America alone from fentanyl poisoning. Let that sink in for a second. Think about how many people died in Vietnam. How many of our troops died in Vietnam? How many of our troops died in World War I and World War II? But yet in 2022, we had 76,000 American kids and adults die. In the congressional hearing, they showed us a video, and they opened the video with a terrorist attack with a plane that killed 200 people a day. 200 people a day over and over. Think about that. Everybody would do something about that. But yet we have 200 plus
A day.
people dying a day from fentanyl poisoning. And what's being done? So we need to have school town halls in our community, town halls, and have the parents involved, town halls with the educators and the school boards at the beginning of the school year to give them tools and educate them on what to watch for with their students. Maybe even before a big break, like Christmas break, or before prom season, or before the end of the year, when the kids are going to be more idle and they're going to have more time on their hands. We just got to do something, because they're getting these pills from their friends, who are getting them from friends, who are getting them from maybe big brothers or big sisters, or maybe aunts and uncles, or somewhere they're
Or
getting
stealing
these
them.
pills, or they're getting them themselves. Or they're what they're doing. And I learned this a year ago, is the dealers, they're bringing in pill presses. And they're making these pills look just like Xanax, just like Adderall, just like a Percocet or a hydrocodone. So if you put them in your hand and you look at one next to the other, one is the real thing, prescribed, one is not, you can't tell them apart unless you're law enforcement, DEA, or a pharmacist. Those are the only ones that can tell them apart. And you really have to look at them. And that's what they're making them look like. And that's what they're pushing to our kids and our young adults. As far as recovery goes, and this is the education in the schools, and then this part is really at my heart. When somebody goes through recovery, whether it's 90 days, which I really think recovery needs to be longer than 90 days. 90 days is just the tip of an iceberg. When they go through recovery and they go into, say they voluntarily go into sober living house, a women's residence, or a men's only residence, and they are monitored. There's oversight on these people, these young people. They still have curfews. Their bank accounts and their job, and they're working, and all of this is monitored. They have to go to so many meetings, which that's monitored. They have house meetings, which that's monitored. They have mandatory testing. Again, it's monitored. Then they tell them, okay, you're ready to go. Well, I'm not. I'm scared. I don't think I'm ready. Nope, we only get so much money.
That's right.
You're ready to go.
It's all about money.
Yes.
How much?
And so they set them up in an apartment. They help them find an apartment. They get them an apartment. They help them with their deposits, pay their rent for
It's
the
not
next.
cheap either.
No. They pay their rent for the next several months for them, or at least 1 month's rent. And they say, okay, you know where to find us if you need any help. So they go from total oversight on what they're doing with curfews and bank accounts and working and all these things that they still have oversight on, to none, unless they feel like they need it. So you get these young people, older people, kids, whatever, and they're going through and they're doing really fine, but then all of a sudden the triggers start in. The depression, the anxiety, and everything else starts
Or being
becoming.
around the wrong person.
Yeah.
Or just being in the wrong environment.
Wrong environment. Sometimes it's the wrong environment even at work, and they don't even realize it.
Right.
And all of a sudden,
It's just like alcohol. It's the same
they're
problem.
going to their mental health physician, and all they're doing is prescribing them different medications or increasing the prescription instead of, let's get you into counseling as well.
Yeah.
They're falling through the cracks, and then their recovery, they go to a friend for a pill, and they wake up the next morning and they're gone, or they don't wake up the next morning. Their family finds them the next morning, or a boyfriend or a friend finds them the next morning because they're gone. That's what's happening too on the recovery end. We need more long-term community partnering to help these young people through their recovery for a longer period, even when they're on their own, even if it's once a week, even if it's once every 2 weeks, keep testing them, keep checking in on them, because that's when they're going to need it the most, because they're not always going to turn to who they need to, just like the kids. They're not going to go to their parents. They're going to go to a friend. They're going to go to somebody else. But we need to put people in place that they can trust.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I mean, you can't imagine losing a kid. I'm sorry. No, I just can't imagine losing a kid.
It is the most difficult thing, because you lose all the future.
Yeah.
You're not only mourning that child then, but every time there's a milestone or a holiday, you're still mourning them because of the future they didn't have.
Yeah.
I think we're under an asymmetric chemical weapon attack being perpetrated by China. They're mass-producing fentanyl. We did the statistics to prove that it's the #1 killer of 18 to 45-year-olds, and now we're seeing an alarming rate of growth amongst babies and children through incidental contact. This is due to the increasing prevalence of the material that's here on the ground, that babies and children are just getting into the material that's not being given to them, and that there's no intent whatsoever. The Select Committee on China found that China is subsidizing the manufacture of fentanyl, and they're using encryption to shelter their advertisements and to cover their communications. We need to take a position of offense now rather than defense. We're constantly on the defensive, and we're coming up with strategies to protect ourselves and whatever. And I'm suggesting we move on to the offensive end, and we declare fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction. The Select Committee found that the Chinese government is culpable in the manufacture and distribution. I think this opens them to a class action lawsuit, and we can go after their money, which is all they care about. They don't care how many Americans they kill.
No, they want Americans to die.
They want the Americans to die. They want them to die.
They hate our way of life.
They have no God.
No.
And they're killing the military-age kids. The United States has never faced a threat like this. So there's no playbook for it. We have to see what's happening in real time and react to what's happening. Only my imagination can tell me, with my background in polymer science, how easily this can be dispersed into the environment, into the food, air, water supply. I can give you several ideas in the most rudimentary things, but if this were put into the Oklahoma City bomb and blown up, that plume would have killed everybody in Oklahoma. If it were put into the Boston bomb, there's no telling how many people would have been killed on the street, because when this stuff explodes, it ionizes and it stays in the air for a long period of time. This material is solvated with the most rudimentary solvents, toluene, MEK, any type of paint thinner, and then it becomes transdermal and a vapor hazard. This stuff can be deployed in any kind of enclosed environment in the most simple ways. So it's going to fall in the hands of the terrorists that are coming across our border in untold amounts. There's no telling how much material is coming in through the de minimis loophole, because like any criminal activity or where there's pressure, the material will find the path of least resistance. And if you have nobody looking in those areas, you have no idea how much is coming in. And there is no resistance to that coming in. And you have no clue how many packages are being done. So we're being inundated with the material, and there may be enough material here stockpiled in the United States that may be beyond our capability at this time. The material is easy to emulsify and put into water, and I'm suggesting that there is ready naloxone anywhere. Luckily, they're developing naloxone implants that could make us, immune to that type of chemical weapon attack. But knowing chemistry, it won't take them long to change the molecule a little bit and make it Narcan resistant, which is what I'm afraid of, because they'll add BHT or some other preservative that'll stop it from oxidative reaction inside your body. You won't be able to metabolize it, and you'll be done. So these are my main concerns, is that we need to take offensive action that's proactive instead of reactive and we need to put the proper laws and rules in place to protect us, because there's nothing like this that's been done in the history of the world besides the opium wars. And in that case, the Chinese went and killed their own opium addicts and got into a huge war with England and the United States while we were poisoning them. This has gone far, far, far worse than any kind of opium addiction. This is 21st century mass murder. I think that we have the proper will and the abilities to confront this before it overruns us. I can well imagine a coordinated attack bringing the United States to its knees while the Chinese go and walk in and take Taiwan without even having to fire a shot.
50,000 Chinese men, military age, came across their border individually this last 12 months.
I'm well aware of that, and that makes me stay awake at night also.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks. No. You can't solve a problem. If people don't believe there's a problem, they're not going to solve it. So the only way we're going to get started is we have to believe there's a big problem, and then we'll all get together and solve it.
Well, again, I'm Dr. Susan Bissett. I'm president of the Drug Intervention Institute, and I'm just very honored to be in the room with all of you today. And I'm very sorry to those of you that have lost a loved one to this epidemic. It is very devastating. As a parent and now a grandparent and a former college administrator for 25 years, I have witnessed way too many young people dying from this epidemic. I responded to an overdose on a college campus while I was an administrator. The student did not live. There was not naloxone available. No one knew the student had become used again after being in recovery. And that was not the worst part of it. The worst part of it was not watching my student be put in a body bag. The worst part of it was when their parents came, and I had to stand next to those two parents while they were cleaning out that student's apartment. Since that time, my children have lost friends. And recently, as 3 or 4 months ago, and it was due to getting a hold of something that they did not know had fentanyl in it. Whether it was a counterfeit pill or something else, there are still some folks looking into that, but it was very clear that it was fentanyl. And so when I came to this work 5 years ago, the Institute had been started by the Truist Foundation. And Truist started the Institute primarily because they couldn't hire anybody in the workforce. And they wanted a healthy workforce. And if we do not get to a place in this country where we have a healthy citizenry, our economy is going to suffer as a result. We have to have people that can do work. We have to have people that are healthy, that can earn a living wage. And so that's a huge part of this too. One of the things that the Institute started doing 18 months ago was deploying one boxes throughout the United States. We now have 15,000 in 50 states. It's not enough when we talk about numbers like 70,000, when we talk about numbers like 100,000, when we talk about every 5 minutes one American is dying from a drug overdose. We talk about how, I've got 10,000 doses of naloxone. I've got 5,000 doses of naloxone. That naloxone does us no good if it is sitting in a closet. And so one of the things that we're doing with the one box is using the box as a way for communities and organizations to deploy naloxone, to get people to use naloxone, to destigmatize responding to an overdose. We all have fire extinguishers and AEDs. We don't intend to set our homes and our buildings on fire, but it's there just in case. And so we need this type of box so that people can see this is as normal as responding to a fire or a cardiac arrest. And more people every day are dying from this than they are from a fire or a cardiac arrest. So it makes sense for us to have naloxone in proximity of anywhere an overdose might occur, which truly is anywhere. So we have these in schools. We have these on university campuses. We have these in bars and restaurants. We have these in honky-tonks in downtown Nashville. We have these in police cruisers in Wilson County, North Carolina. And I'm not going to stop until we have proliferated the United States with naloxone in the same way that fentanyl has proliferated our drug supply. So the last thing that I will say is I promised the mayor
that I would demo the box, so I will do it very, very quickly. But the box is intended to go next to an AED or a fire extinguisher. Yes, thank you, Christine. Thank you. I didn't know you were back there. And so you affix it to the wall. We recommend you affix it to the wall in such a way that it can be removed. So if we're in this room and there's an overdose happening outside, you can remove it and take it with you. It holds 2 doses of intranasal naloxone. We don't care whether it's Cloxato, Narcan, Revive, just 2 doses of intranasal naloxone. It will have a PPE kit in there, which includes a CPR barrier mask, gloves, and sanitary wipes. But then the person will respond and pull down the tab, and automatically a video will play telling them what to do. She will also talk to you in Spanish. And then there is a long-form training mode, which is a 6-minute video, which is designed to onboard people. So we have bars and restaurants that are now using this as part of their hiring process. You're going to come here, you're not only going to get your food safety handler's license, you're not only going to fill out your W-2, you're also going to learn how to use intranasal naloxone in case you might need to use it. So we're kind of on a mission. We use anything that we're able to from this box to continue to support our mission at the Institute. We do a lot of education, outreach, and programming. But I've been all over the country talking about how we need to get naloxone out of the closet and into the places it needs to be. And I think that's so crucial, and we've got to destigmatize the use of it. We have to get people comfortable and willing to respond as bystanders, because it's our daughters, our sons, our grandchildren, our coworker, our loved ones. And I think it's important for us to remember that every life deserves a chance. Everyone deserves an opportunity to recovery. And as we know, recovery does happen.
Mayor.
Thank you very much. It's good to be next to the end because I don't have to talk too much. I am so proud of being a mayor for the time like such, with such a great city, police officer, the sheriff, and the supervisor of education, and all this, the first responders that we work with. And here in the county of Osceola and the city of Kissimmee, we have been trying to work on everything that could help our city be better. One of my ideas is, like I continue to say, my people perish for lack of knowledge. I'm gathering a lot of chaplains and pastors so that they can take all this information into their churches, because the churches is to help who? The sick. And that's what we need to do. We need to bring back God. That's who we need to bring back, because he's the only one that can help us. And right now we have a group of pastors and chaplains that we're going to start a training for emergency disasters. And what else better to add to them the learning of all this fentanyl and all of that, because the churches has a lot of kids and a lot of activities. And what better than to teach them what the pills look like, what they are out there in the streets. Like I said before, my people perish for lack of knowledge. We need to give them knowledge. And we're joining all these churches together so that they can give the county, the city, the communities, the information that needs to be out there. We need to teach our constituents on what they need to learn. Thank you so much for having it here in our city, and we're going to try our best to do the best that we can.
You'll do a good job. You always do.
Well, I think based on everything that I've heard here today, I can safely say that our country faces a national security threat that it's never faced before. That national security threat, in my view, comes from 3 sources, and we've heard bits about each of them. The first is from the People's Republic of China. The second is from the government of Mexico, and the third, sort of a part of the second, are the Mexican drug cartels. So as we heard earlier, the People's Republic of China is profiting from drug trafficking. They are, a committee recently found that they are actually engaged in essentially drug trafficking to the Mexican drug cartels for the purpose of undermining our country and making money. The government of Mexico, under the leadership of President Obrador, known also as AMLO, has been utterly ineffective in attacking.
He doesn't care.
Sir, not only does he not care, I often say that he sounds more like the press secretary for the Sinaloa cartel than the president of Mexico.
Right.
He actually operates in a way that, in my opinion, supports the drug cartels. And the evidence of that is today, Mexico is under the control of approximately 35% of Mexico is under control of the drug cartels. Think about that for a minute. More than 1/3 of the country on our southern border. Yes. Did I push a button? Okay. I'll just talk louder. More than 1/3 of the country of Mexico on our southern border is under the control of drug cartels whose mission, whose purpose in life is to move drugs into this country that have killed over 100,000 Americans over the last few years. That is stunning. And of course, the drug cartels themselves, the third part of this. All they want to do is make money, and they're doing that now, not just through drug trafficking. We haven't really talked about this. They're also doing it through illegal immigration. So we need to absolutely rethink how we deal with Mexico, how we deal with China, and how we deal with the drug cartels. Let me just say this, as a former acting administrator of the Drug Enforcement Administration. Mexico is not an ally. Mexico is now a narco state. We have to treat them like a narco state. China is trying to kill our children and undermine our democracy. We need to treat them like a country, essentially like an enemy. And the drug cartels are controlling so much of Mexico, we can't count on Mexico to take care of that problem themselves. So we need to rethink this entire problem. We need to view it as a national security threat that's killing hundreds of thousands of Americans a year. One of the things I think that we need to do is we need to declare the drug cartels foreign terrorist organizations. That would give a president who has the willingness to use the tools against them the ability to do that. We don't have to go into all the details of what that means, but what that means is every single option would be on the table to deal with the Mexican drug cartels. And by every single option, I do mean every single option needs to be on the table. Because Mexico will never work against it, will never stop the drug cartels unless we do that. And we also need to be very strong with China, too. So with that, sir, thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
Thanks. Well, first off, let me finish by thanking everybody for coming. I think this is all hands on deck. And the real key is going to be that everybody's got to be part of this. It starts with their parents. They've got to do it. But, you know, our schools, it can't be that we just rely on law enforcement and make sure law enforcement has plenty of Narcan. Okay? That is something we have to do. But when it gets there, I mean, it's almost like it's the end because it's so hard to beat. So I'm going to do everything I can. If anybody has ideas, I think everybody knows Jared. If you don't, you know Barry down here. Give us your ideas, and we're going to keep working on it. But I think all of us, we know it's all hands on deck. I just want to thank everybody for being here, and we just got to keep thinking of ways we can prevent the death of our kids and our grandkids. So thanks, everybody.
Sure.